The world is full of people, thinkers who just think about things, and the thinkers who turn those thoughts into action. While there is debate about whether entrepreneurs are born or made, what is clear is there are characteristics of entrepreneurs that set them apart from the rest of us. One who organizes, manages, and takes the risks of a business or enterprise. That's an entrepreneur. They come in all sizes, shapes, ethnicities, colors. What they all have in common is the ability to see beyond the blank canvas and capitalize and exploit opportunities that others may have overlooked. Millionaires and billionaires have a lot in common. Many are self-made. There are many remarkable examples. Madam C.J. Walker is known for taking the hair care market by storm, or Kevin Plank, who took his $20,000 in savings and $40,000 in credit cards to form Under Armour. The age of entrepreneurism shrank from 1977 to 2013, with millennials showing diminished interest in entrepreneurship as compared to the generations before them. The most educated generation we've produced has not resulted in more business development. Perhaps this generation is simply too mobile and impatient to strap themselves with additional debt when many are still paying off student loans. Money matters, and if doors are shut on you, you have to keep knocking until someone says yes. Entrepreneurs are masters of invention, which can also be applied to themselves personally. They don't wait behind doors that close, they kick them open. Each successive move becomes more deliberate and strategic based on the lessons learned from their past successes. What we will learn today is that once you build a successful brand, your self-brand, you can do anything. That's for sure. Okay, welcome everyone. I want to welcome you to another episode of Tabernacle Talks, and I'm so excited to have some stellar guests with us this evening, Shane and Shawn Ward, and they have a very exciting background. And so because I don't want to miss anything, they've received numerous awards, and I just want to kind of go through some of them. They're smiling, and I'm sure they're going to be very humble, but I'm going to blow them up for a minute. They've been featured on Access Hollywood, The View, Wendy Williams Show, MTV's Made, The Tyra Banks Show, featured in O Magazine. And in addition, you've been named to People Magazine's Hottest Bachelors from Black Enterprise, Powerful Players Under 40, and you've received numerous awards for design and fashion. And all of that before I've even asked you a single question. So I want to welcome Shane and Shawn to Tabernacle Talks. Welcome, Shane. Welcome, Shawn.
Thank you for having us, Dr. Michelle. It's our pleasure for sure. When I say that, I'm sure I speak for Shawn as well, that we're honored just to be here. So thanks again.
Okay, wonderful. Well, I guess, I always have questions. I always start off the show with tons of questions. So did you ever imagine that your careers would skyrocket the way that they have?
So I'll take a stab at this, and we're going to be probably bouncing back and forth. I would say, in general, for me personally, a part of it isn't a surprise because I remember just as a kid having a sense of visualization of what my future could look like and having such a passion for creativity and drawing, and having that type of imagination was something that I think guided me throughout my childhood and adulthood, so that I felt like there wasn't really a ceiling that was going to keep me from ascending to heights that I wanted to. Now, that being said, as you do enter this thing called life, there are a lot of barriers along the way, a lot of hurdles. And I think that's when you start to really figure out, or you start to understand how challenging it could be to be, in your mind, considered successful. So it doesn't surprise me in general, but it's been not the smoothest road either.
Wow. Okay. Well, you are success personified. I've done a lot of research on both of your careers, and you've achieved what most entrepreneurs dream about. And so if you had to have a formula for success, if there's such a formula, could you describe what that formula would consist of?
Yeah, good question, Dr. Michelle. This is Shawn, the Shawn half of the twins. I'll take a stab at that because I actually did come up with a, a formula years ago. And it takes into account three different variables. One, first and foremost, is hard work. I think that's something that Shane and I, and kind of alluding to what Shane mentioned earlier about, you know, getting to some of the success that we've had. I think at the core of a lot of it is hard work. And I think early on, we saw that we weren't the most talented kids when we were playing football. We saw that we didn't have the best memories when it came to maybe current events, quizzes. So something inside of us really, I think, came out that we had to work a bit harder to get ourselves at least at a level where some of our peers were. So that's kind of guided us, I think, all throughout our career. And so it didn't surprise us when we started, you know, making football teams and getting into college. So that was just touching on the first question. The second question for the formula, first and foremost, hard work. You hear the old expression, nothing comes easy, you know, get a little elbow grease, you have to work hard. And if you add your hard work with your something that you really are talented in, or you can attain some sort of talent by, if you're interested in, say, medicine, you may want to go to school and study medicine, then you can actually hone your skills in medicine. You add that with hard work, you're really setting yourself up for success. So first two variables, hard work, talent. Again, it's not just God-given talent. There's talent that you can acquire through a mentor, through schooling. And then last but not least, you need some luck.
Okay.
You know, you hear these stories about, you know, one that just came in my mind was Vin Diesel. Vin Diesel had this, he was a bouncer in New York, and he wanted to be an actor because he used to see all these actors come through the door at some of the clubs he was working at. And so he had no acting skills. He never went to school. So he started making his own movies, short films. And somehow, some way, an A-list actor came across his one of his shows and said, that's the guy who's perfect for this specific role in Saving Private Ryan. And he ended up getting this role. Again, he just worked hard and started putting out his own content. And once he got discovered, really by luck, then he was able to catapult from there. So hard work, talent, and luck.
Excellent formula. And talent, you're absolutely right. You always hear about raw talent, but you have to work. Talent alone doesn't get you to be to the levels of success that you've reached. I want to take you back to the very beginning, if we can all go back with you down memory lane, back to Detney. It was a shoe brand that you formed. I understand your road wasn't easy and you didn't start with silver spoons in your mouths. Can you mind sharing with the audience what the beginning was like and what motivated you to begin a shoe brand?
Okay, Dr. Michelle, yeah, you're definitely allowing us to go back down memory lane a bit. And the answer to that really good question, how it started and how did it start to manifest itself? I'll start with the fact that after I graduated from college, University of Michigan School of Art and Design, I studied industrial design. And I started working for Adidas in Portland, Oregon. And being a designer at one of the most influential global brands in the world allowed me to hone my skills as a shoe designer. So I knew pretty much everything it took to build a shoe from scratch. And that's one thing that I like to instill into a lot of young creatives, is that before we jump out into entrepreneurship and running our own businesses, is really beneficial to hone your skills and your knowledge in that particular field that you would like to start a business with. And that's what I did at Adidas. I traveled the world working with factories. I knew some of the marketing that went into it by working with athletes, but I always had this innate passion to have my own brand and to control my own destiny, and ultimately to have a dream of handing it over to, if I was lucky enough or honored enough to have kids, to be like a generational story to tell and to pass that business on. So an idea was something that I had for a long time. I finally moved to New York to start my own freelance design consultancy, in which I was designing, after I left Adidas, I designed for brands like Puma, Merrell, Converse, Royal Elastics, FUBU. And Shawn moved to New York as well at the same time, and we became roommates. It was very natural for us to live together. And I would communicate this idea to Shawn that I wanted to start a company that fused our sense of fashion with athletic comfort. And Shawn's background in engineering, I mean, it was just serendipitous because he knew what it took to manage a business, manage a unit, control a budget. And we decided to partner with each other, and we separated our responsibilities pretty much right down the middle, with me focusing on design and development and all the creative, from logos to website, any touch point that the customer would interact with. And Shawn took over all the operations, shipping, financing, and marketing as well. And it was one of the best experiences of my life, being able to harness the skills that I procured over the years with working for brands like Adidas, and seeing that manifest in something that came from Shawn and my mind. And it was difficult at times as well, because you have this partner who's your twin brother, and at most of the times, you know, you guys are joined and aligned on pretty much everything, but then there are times when you're not. And that really tested us on all levels. And I know we may get into this a little bit more about having running a business with your family, but it was incredibly rewarding. There's no one that I would have wanted to start a business with than Shawn. And so as we started along that path of naming the company, we named it Detney. It was a fusion of Detroit and New York, where we were living at the time.
Okay, creative.
And that's how we came up with the name. And not only were we fusing those two cities that meant so much to us, we were fusing fashion and comfort. So it all started to make sense, and we just took the leap.
Okay, well, you obviously had a family-owned business. Can you describe for me the passion and the peril? Because I know it wasn't all fun having a family-owned business. And are you a first generation, second generation, third generation? Do you mind sharing that with us?
Yeah, definitely don't mind sharing. And if you don't mind, I just want to, I know we took a leap right from kind of to Detney. You mentioned it, Dr. Michelle, that our path wasn't easy and we weren't born with silver spoons. I just want to reiterate that a bit more to maybe some younger people who may be watching this, or even people who are a bit older. Shane and I went to inner city public schools in Detroit. You know, our family was on welfare. We had food stamps. What drove us was to try to find, you know, a better place. We started caddying at a golf course, and we saw, you know, people who went to college and was successful. And we took school incredibly serious, at elementary, middle school, high school, because we felt that education was our way, you know, to doing better with our lives. And so when Shane mentioned University of Michigan, I just want to make sure everyone know we went on a full ride academic scholarship for golf caddies who had financial need.
Right.
So yes,
Wow. Wow.
I just wanted to share that there are opportunities for people who really work hard and take their schooling serious. They can get scholarships to go to schools that will catapult you to an Adidas, like where Shane went, and to Chrysler, where I went after graduating. So sorry for sidetracking the interview. I just wanted to make sure I made that very clear.
No, that's great. I'm glad you did that, Shawn.
No, I think that's powerful to understand, so that people can relate to you when they see you now.
Mm-hmm.
They understand it's not where you started, it's where you finished.
That's
and
right.
it lets people know that there's nothing that stops you if you have passion and you have tenacity and you have a good work ethic. So let's go back to when you start a brand or you're starting a business. What were the steps to do that? Or just kind of walk us through what a typical week looks like when you have a business or your own brand.
Yeah, taking you through that step will connect with your question about family-owned businesses and why they're so prevalent. I think first and foremost, people gravitate to family-owned businesses because at the core of business and sharing a bank account and sharing a checkbook to pay bills is trust. And for the most part, the people you trust the most are your family members, right? So you actually don't have to get over that hurdle with a friend or someone you met at the gym or someone you went to school with. You have that trust factor right away. The core and the foundation of an entrepreneur partner relationship is already there. And I think, to answer that first question, that's why it's so prevalent. And then we get into the the drama. The question about kind of a typical day in entrepreneurship, you have to understand, when I have a 9-to-5 now. I work at Toyota. Shane is an executive at a footwear company. We know when we go into work, next week we're getting paid or whatever the cadence of our paycheck is. When you're an entrepreneur, you wake up and you're not sure when the next paycheck is coming, right? And so just to even get around that is tough for a lot of people, and it's totally understandable. And I tell people all the time, if you start a business, start it on the side first. Don't walk away from your 9-to-5. Keep your bills paid from your 9-to-5, so your business that you're starting doesn't have to pay your bills and pay your grocery bills, pay your car note, your insurance. So a typical day today, if you're balancing a 9-to-5 and a new venture, typically when you get off of your 9-to-5 at nighttime, you're building your business plan. You're trying to make numbers work. You're trying to see how you're going to differentiate your product or service from the competition. Do I have any initial customers that I can lean on, family members, friends? How can I actually purchase this product and sell it to someone? Do I need a website? So there's all of these things that you don't have to worry about in a typical 9-to-5 because you're just in your, lane. So, but when you go into entrepreneurship, there's finance, there's logistics. If your product, you're shipping, you're procuring, there's materials. Even if you're a service, how do I market this? How do I get the first customers? How do I get referrals? So it's a lot of hours put in at night and weekends. And if somehow you're doing it full time, all of that, is done during the day and you have more time to do it, but you may not have your bills paid from a 9-to-5. So a typical day is pretty hectic.
Wow.
Until you get those lanes in place where you can divide and conquer, as Shane was mentioning earlier.
But I think that's great information to tell people, don't leave your day job just in case you're interested in starting a business, because then you'll get frustrated and that fear may drive you back when you got to give it your all. And it sounds like, no, you got to be ready when you step out to start a business to have thought all these things through. So thanks for sharing that. Now I have to ask another question, because obviously you're twins and I have nieces that are identical twins. And it's very interesting. Did the novelty of being twins help or hurt your brand?
That's a great question, Dr. Michelle. I think it helps. It's very difficult for me to come up with the fact that we were twins. Did that pose any type of negative situations or perceptions? I think even before we started our own business, there's this curiosity around twins. I just remember that from being kids going to church or going on a field trip. They see two of the same person. People are just like, whoa, what is it? You guys are twins. And then you dress alike sometimes. And do you feel it when someone pokes you? It's just this fascination about
oh gosh,
a carbon copy of a person. And so I think it was always a positive, not only because of the intrigue that it inherently has as being a twin and the interest that people have in it, but then Shawn spoke on this a little bit earlier about the trust factor. I mean, if you can understand how much you would trust a parent or another sibling or a daughter or a son, then multiply that by 100. That's how much you can trust a twin, just from a foundational standpoint and having a partner. Because ever since your existence on this planet, I mean, you have been together. You were together in your mother's womb. You were together in a crib. And there's just no other comparison to having, I would say, just implicit trust with someone else. And then it just made the story more interesting when we garnered press. You know, if there was an interview from a magazine, or if we were featured on television, the optics were just a lot more impactful. You can make it more impactful by dressing alike or looking different. We dyed our hair quite a bit back in the day. It was always a positive, I think. And Shawn may have a different lens that he probably sees it with, but it was always, for operationally and optics, it was always a positive.
Okay, I have a trick question. You both have on blue shirts. Did you plan that?
No,
Not even close.
Blue has always been my favorite color. So everything, even my little janky water cup is blue.
And I would say I blame this on me. Shawn will say I hardly ever wear buttoned up shirts.
No, yeah.
Probably one of the few button up shirts that I own. I wanted to look a little more sophisticated for this call. But
she's a doctor, so you need to, you dress up for a doctor, man.
Yeah,
I got on a t-shirt. I'm sitting.
You have on a t-shirt.
Well, you already have the title. You don't have to dress up.
Exactly.
If I was a doctor, I wouldn't wear a button up either.
Love it. Okay, you got fans from around the world. Fergie, John Legend. Really, David Beckham, Jamie Foxx. Loved your shoe brands. There are numerous entrepreneurs out there who probably develop product or designs and they never reach those heights. What got you there? I mean, I know you say talent and luck, but really what got you in front of those people to say, we love your brands?
Yeah, that is, man, that's not just a good question. That's $1 million question, right? Because a lot of people, you can't even pay many influencer celebrities to promote your product. Things have changed so much from when Shane and I had Detney to now. Right now, everything is digital and influencers. When we started Detney back in 2003, like so long, almost 20 years ago, it's incredible. There was no Instagram, there was no Facebook, and so everything was built around television and magazines. And so there's what we did, and then there's how and why we did it. I think the how and the why is really important. A lot of times when we start our business, and I'm guilty of this, and Shane is guilty of this. First thing we want, we're CEOs. We put our CEO on our business card, and this is our company. I own it 100%, and if I'm a partner, I own it 50%. That's it. I don't want anybody else. This is my baby. What Shane and I did was we understood that we needed to bring talented people into our sphere who could do things that we couldn't do. And we had to rely on people, and we were living in New York. So, we moved there so that we could fulfill our dreams. So it was easier to get to these people. But when we got there, there's still a lot of designers who can't. We had to trust people who had relationships with celebrities, or a lot of times celebrities, stylists. It wasn't even the celebrity themselves. We were like 3 or 4 people removed, but we would meet people and we would bring them into our sphere and say, let's work together. Like, we have these shoes. Can you give them these shoes? These weren't connections that we had. So we really leveraged people who had talent, and it got to a point where we didn't have much money. So all we had was equity. And then we would give, a partner equity to go out and hustle our press and to get our shoes on, again, maybe to showrooms or to stylists or to friends of a celebrity. And it just grew from there. And then, how success breeds success. When one magazine features you, then another magazine will say, oh, they're hot. Oh, well, maybe we should talk about them. And it was a lot of hustle though, right? It didn't come easy. We really had to hustle. We met people, we were out. We didn't stay inside of our apartments and was hoping that it came to us. We went out, and I remember Shane walked up to Jay-Z one time and did the song and did the song and dance. You know, I walked up to pub in the club and just did the song and dance. I'm Shawn, my twin brother. We have shoes, and then they would pass it to somebody, and we would say, "Hey, you know, here's our number. What size do you have? What's the address?" A lot of hustle and a lot of just bringing people in who had complementary talents.
Well, I can tell just from talking to both of you that you're humble, and I would imagine you had to hear no quite a bit.
Yes. It was like it was like going to auditions as an actor. You get no way more than you get yes, for sure. We pitched Oprah magazine, our publicist probably pitched Oprah magazine at least 20, 30 times before we finally got in, right? And when we got on Wendy Williams, Wendy Williams was brand new, and she was only in, I think, 6 markets at the time. It wasn't the big national show that it is now. And so she was just a radio personality in New York who was starting a show. We didn't know where it was going to go, but we felt like, well, if someone has a TV show and if it's in 6 markets, that's better than 0. So let's give them some shoes and hope for the best. And it worked out. So
you guys are humble, because I know I only had to ask you once. Yes.
Actually, I wanted to tell a couple stories also, if we have time, on how Shawn is really touching on something like this hustle and this idea of constantly being out there and not sitting in your home hoping for things to come to you. So I want to tell 2 stories on how we were able to procure orders from 2 of the biggest retailers in the United States and globally recognized, Macy's and Nordstrom's. So for Nordstrom's, our sister Robin was our head of sales, right? She had a background in sales. She had worked for Essence magazine in the past, so she was doing account management. She has the gift of gab, and she's super confident. She has a callus that she's built over years. When someone says no, she gets hungrier to go back and get a yes eventually. Shawn and I inherently didn't have that. We were more product people. So we brought her on board as a partner, giving her equity in the company. And we didn't have the room to give her a salary, but she believed in the future. So we would rent out a small little hotel room to show our brand to anyone who would walk by, buyers from independent boutiques all around the nation, in Las Vegas at this shoe show called WSA, the World Shoe Association. So we would rent out a room for like $1,000 for 4 days. We found out who the buyers were for Nordstrom's, and we would see them walk past our door to go visit other brands. My sister I remember she chased them down while they were going on the elevator. She had a shoe in her hand. She said, "Hey, listen, guys, I know you're busy. My name is Robin. I represent a brand called Detney by Shane and Shawn. It's fashion, it's comfortable. If you ever get a chance, check us out. Here's more information on our company." And they said, "Oh, thank you very much." They got in the elevator, they left. Robin did this for probably a year and a half of just finding them in the hallways, again, reintroducing herself, till finally, I would say after 2 years of trying this, they finally came into our room. And they sat down. It was like 8 people. We didn't have any room for them. They filled up the entire space. And I was so nervous presenting the shoes. They did not buy that time, but they came back and saw us the next year, and they finally bought. So it was just this, not only a life lesson, but a professional lesson of not giving up, hard work, and then us trusting our sister and being the face of our company, because we knew what her skill set was. The second story is how we were able to procure orders from Macy's. And that was such a roundabout way. We were pitched this idea of being on a reality show on, I forget, it was called Unwrapping Macy's. That's what it was called, Unwrapping Macy's. It was a show for Macy's, and they would just go
on the WE channel. It was on the WE channel, Women's Entertainment Network. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And they wanted to just showcase what it took for a brand, an emerging small brand, to get their product into Macy's. And they used us as a guinea pig. We weren't in Macy's at all. Our PR, our publicist, pitched us to be on that episode. And they invited us to that episode, and we pitched our product, and they gave us a shot. They said, "Okay, we're going to put a few of your shoes into," I think they chose the Macy's in Detroit, or maybe it was Chicago, somewhere where we had a following. And then it went from 1 store to eventually 7 stores nationwide. So There's no one formula for success, or how do you get into retailers? How do you get on shows? How do you become this global brand that's recognized and respected? It's just constantly being out there, having a sense of ingenuity, but then also this work ethic where you are going to fight and you're going to push hard as you can to put yourself in a position to succeed.
Wow, that is amazing. And I hope that people in the audience understand that it wasn't like once, twice, thrice. I mean, you just have to you have to have a tenacity to just keep pushing. And you have to obviously love what you do, because if you weren't committed, I would think after a couple of no's, you would have been like, okay, we just need to pack this up and do something else. But you had your whole life into this business. And so it had to be successful for you. And I think people need to understand it. You don't look at plan B. You had plan A, and plan A had to work. Amazing. Okay, right. I want to talk about entrepreneurship. You travel and you go to various events and colleges and you speak to entrepreneurs. Talk to me about not your elevator speech for entrepreneurship, but what are the key things, takeaways that you give the students when you talk to them about what you've experienced?
Shane, I'll let you take that.
Okay, really great question, because when we go and we speak to college students, which is fascinating to speak to middle school, high school, and college students, because you want to have this influence during their formidable years. And as Shawn alluded to earlier, I think there's always this sense of urgency to eventually become a CEO of your own company. You can be the boss and you control your destiny, but it could be bleak times. So one thing that I always try to instill constantly is get a degree if you can, if that's in your calling, because that degree that you have from that university or that community college, it opens up so many doors that won't be open if you did not have it. Now, after that, try to get a job in the industry that you want to start your career in. So to me, there's steps to entrepreneurship. I think that building a foundation of knowledge and skills within that industry will allow you to, or it will prevent you from making a lot of mistakes that you will make if you did not have that foundation built. It's not sexy to say, okay, go and have a 9-to-5 first. But it's a foundation that you're building so that when you go out and have your own business, you have the knowledge and you have the skill sets. So that's what I pitch all the time. But then also have a mentor. Try and reach out to individuals who have done what you would like to do. Now, you don't want to just reach out to one. You want to play a numbers game, because maybe that person that you reach out to is, a lot of entrepreneurs are super busy. They don't have time to mentor. So, but if you reach out to 20 people and 20 brands that you respect, maybe 5 people may get back to you and say, hey, thank you for that message. I really appreciate it. Maybe we can get on a call soon or a video chat. And then from that 5, maybe there's only 2 that you eventually ever get on a call with in a video chat. So, but now you at least have 1 or 2 mentors that can help you guide you on your path. So those are the 2 things I really focus on when I speak to college students and high school students: is get your degree, go out, procure a job in that industry, and then start garnering those mentors, because they're going to be the guiding light that's going to guide you. They're going to give you the roadmap to how do you be successful, or at least how you build a foundation within that industry.
Well, I think you both have some tremendous foundations, because you're now in corporate America. And I'm going to start with you, Shane. You're the creative director of GH Bass. Describe what a creative director does.
Great question.
Directors don't do anything. They just tell their employees what to do, and then they say that's good and that's bad.
So there are so many layers to being a creative director, but the way that I like to define it in a general sense is that a creative director is the conscience of the brand, meaning that your path to becoming a creative director could be one of product design, which that was my path. I designed shoes. Or it could be from being a photographer and controlling all of the brand identification and photo shoots. Or it could be a graphic design background, or it could be an apparel design background. But when you have a certain amount of success within your particular scope, and you start to understand that the brand is bigger than just shoes, there's all these other product classifications and apparel, outerwear, accessories, home. You don't have to be an expert in all of those different classifications of product, or even logo and brand ID and packaging. But what you do have to have is the capacity to understand how they're all connected, how every package, every product that you put out to the customer, they feel as if they came out of one mind and out of one studio. So that's my job as a creative director, is to be the conscious of the brand. What looks and feels right for Gucci or Adidas may not always feel right for GH Bass. So I have to funnel current trends that are out there right now, whether it be colors, materials, silhouettes. I have to funnel all of that information through the lens of GH Bass, because we always have to be true to who we are as a heritage classic American brand, but then also have that balance of how do we push the brand forward to engage a new customer as well. So on a day-to-day basis, as a creative director, I am working with my shoe designers and giving them direction. They come to me with ideas on shoes for the following season. And to Shawn's point, I say that looks great, but it doesn't work with the brand. Maybe you can try this perspective.
Okay.
Same thing. I might have meetings with my apparel designers, outerwear designers. I also work with licensing companies that may make our bedding and home goods or slippers. And it's my job to give them what the brand should look and feel like, so that they have the direction that they need to design and develop towards their product line. So yeah, it's a very fascinating position to be in, because you're constantly learning, because you're in charge of all of these different parts of the company from a creative standpoint. But it takes a while to get there, and it's a lot of responsibility, because all of the executives in the company, they look to you for having the answer to what should be right and what should be wrong. And so you earn that respect, and you garner that trust from your teammates to make those calls. But at this stage, I have to always trust my instincts.
Well,
So
I think you gave a textbook answer. At a collegiate level, when I've taught, master's level students, I always let them know, when you get into a leadership position, it's not necessarily you can't necessarily master content when you get a director level, because you have so many different people under you, but you do have to master the context of what they're doing, so that you understand globally how you can be impactful and make them stay true to what your core competency is. And I think you clearly kind of defined the creative director has to know the core competency of the business, so that you're not out there making things that aren't true to the brand. So bravo, I guess on that answer. Okay, Shawn, I'm going to pick on you, because I'm going to be honest with you. Hydrogen fuel program, I was like, wow, he's making jets, jet fuel. Describe for us what that's about.
Yeah, well, if you're creative, you can leave the room now, because this won't interest you. But if you would like to hear about some engineers and MBAs who are working in industries to decarbonize the environment and to allow our children and our children's children to have a healthier air to breathe, then this is kind of something that you want to hear. So
that's socially responsible. People want to work for socially responsible companies. So
very much so. Very much so. So I'm now working at Toyota. I'm back to my roots. Shane is, as he mentioned earlier, has his degree in industrial design from Michigan. And I went to school at Michigan and grad school for mechanical engineering. So I've always been the left brain behind the scenes working on business strategy. And so I'm just honored and lucky and blessed, whatever, to have landed in Los Angeles back in automotive, because I started my career at Chrysler, and now I'm at Toyota, which is the largest automotive company in the world. We're transitioning to a mobility company, and I'm able to bring all of these, I would say, tools that I've acquired from, schooling, Chrysler, being an entrepreneur, running my own brand. Shane and I took our company public on the Frankfurt Stock Exchange at one point. So finance, all of these different skills that I was able to learn over the years, I'm able to bring it into this role as senior project manager for a global initiative to remove the toxic nitric oxide and carbon that basically comes out of these, you've seen them on the road, these 18-wheeler heavy duty trucks that pull all of our goods throughout the United States. Shane's company, for instance, is importing, footwear, clothing from all over the world, right? India, Asia, Africa, and it comes through these large tanker ships that basically run on coal and gasoline and fossil fuels. And then they send it off into a port where these 18-wheeler trucks pick up these big containers and drive them into distribution centers. And all of them, pretty much 90% of all of these tankers and trucks are powered by fossil fuels, which basically you see the smoke going up in the air. It's polluting our air and our environment. And so our project is, we are the Advanced Business Strategy Group, and me in particular, I work in the hydrogen fuel cell electric division, where we're basically taking that engine and transmission that runs off of gasoline, taking it out of those trucks, and we're inputting an electrified powertrain that runs on hydrogen, which is the most abundant element in the universe. And when you take this hydrogen, we have hydrogen tanks instead of a gas tank, and you put it through this, and I don't want to get too technical, but basically when you add hydrogen with oxygen, air that comes into the, through the grill in the front, it creates, it basically goes into a fuel cell, and it basically creates electricity. And what comes out of the tailpipe instead of smoke is water. So we're basically able to push this truck without emitting any carbon into the environment, and it only byproduct is water. And so it's basically cleaning our environment while also becoming, if you watch the news, you hear about California and you hear about these global initiatives to make our environment better. We're basically a small piece of that puzzle.
Wow. No, that's fascinating. That is absolutely, and I hope I've got some students out there. You're hearing science, and you're hearing how you started and you ended up in a career path that's just absolutely fascinating and fabulous. And I'm going to leave you both at the last word, because I could really talk to you both all day. You have such interesting careers, and you seem like you've landed in just great careers. You have great experience and great background, and it wasn't luck. You worked hard. And I think if the audience doesn't hear anything else, you worked hard to get where you are, and you're working hard to stay where you are. So I'm going to give you both the last word.
I'll go first. My last word is that I remember when I was starting my career at Chrysler in Detroit, there was a speaker who came, and this speaker said that each one of you, we were all recent graduates, will have 6 or 7 careers before you retire. And at the time, I thought that was ridiculous, because I had my bachelor's and master's in mechanical engineering. I'm working for Chrysler. My vision was to be an executive in automotive. That's what I wanted to do. Lo and behold, I was an engineer. I became a consultant with my twin brother, consulting for Adidas, Fubu, Fila, Converse, Royal Elastic, designing shoes. I became a brand owner with my twin brother in footwear. That's 3. I then became a small business consultant, because learning so many skills and starting our own business, I started turning that into a business because individuals were asking for help with starting their business. I moved to LA and got into real estate, and that was my 5th career. And now I'm in my sixth career, which is back in automotive, but working with a project that is really helping our environment. And
Wow.
every step of the way, I was true to myself. That's the thing, is whenever, life isn't just one idea of where you're going to go or where you are, where you think you're going to be. I have basically been true to myself every step of the way. When I was self-employed as an entrepreneur, that's the only thing I wanted to do at that time. Now that I'm in Southern California with palm trees and I have a wife and a kid, I love working for Toyota. And I know that when I get home at 6 o'clock, it's all of my time. Whereas when you're an entrepreneur, you're working all night. My weekends are to myself. So when I finish this, I'm taking my son to the park and we're going to go hang out and we'll go to the beach next weekend. I've been true to myself. Everything has been a stepping stone. And you said it, Dr. Michelle, hard work has never ended, but I definitely try to smell the roses and appreciate what I have. It's not that I have to go to work. I'm honored to have the opportunity to go to work. And I'm as happy now as I was in my 20s and my late 20s, early 30s running around New York City with Shane. It's just a different fun and I'm a different stage of my life. So I would just tell people that follow your passion now, what's true to yourself, and you will always be in a place where you should be with hard work, talent, and a bit of luck.
Okay, Shane, I guess you're going to knock it out the park for us.
Yes. It's going to be really difficult to have the last word to top that. Shawn is always really, he's always really, he's a really good wordsmith, and he's really always been really good at pulling his thoughts together to something that people can build on. But I'm going to leave this conversation by talking about two words that have been really powerful for me and my evolution as a designer, entrepreneur, and now an executive creative director. One being, and I'm assuming that your audience is probably very wide ranging, from
Very much so.
students all the way to, very mature entrepreneurs. One thing that I would like to instill into everyone that's listening and watching is that while you're on this path of creating your dream and through entrepreneurship, if that may be what it is, or if it's just trying to ascend within corporate America, make sure you have balance. When I say balance, when Shawn and I first started our company, there was this notion out there that if you were sleeping, you were doing it wrong, right? You have to be working all day and all night. And I think that's a huge misconception. I think that the more rest that you get and the more calmness and stillness that you can have within your energy, then the more thoughtful and the more creative and the more productive and the more efficient you will be on a day-to-day basis. So make sure you give time to your family, your friends, and self-care. Doesn't matter if you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, have that balance. Second thing is, after you get to a point where your foundation
60s, don't forget your 60s. 60s,
60s, 70s, 80s. Absolutely. Hey, I figure once you're in your 60s, you're starting to retire. Your balance is
we're living longer lives now, man.
This is true.
Sorry. I just want to make sure the 60-year-olds don't feel like they don't have anything.
Touche. And then finally, as you kind of have that foundation under you where you're super confident and you feel really great about where you are in your life as a professional or as an entrepreneur, one thing that's been powerful for me is purpose. And that purpose for me has been something that I learned a little bit. We talked about in our fraternity. Shawn and I are members of Omega Psi Phi fraternity, and we talked a lot about lifting as we climb, right? And the way that we manifested that in college and in post-college was community service, which is huge and admirable. Now that mantra has kind of manifested itself in the word purpose for me, and that is, how can I be a conduit for inspiring? How can I nurture mentorships and provide opportunities for kids that grew up or are growing up in similar situations as Shawn and I did. As he mentioned earlier, very humble beginnings, not knowing that you can harness your creativity into a very lucrative career, and especially if you're a person of color. And so that's something that I've been leaning a lot into. And if I can inspire one kid in middle school, high school, or in college to go after pursue their dreams and their imagination into a creative field and be successful and build a foundation not only for themselves, but then generational wealth, then I can sleep better at night. And then one day when I leave this world, I can be proud and really leave with a smile on my face because of that purpose.
Wow. Well, I knew I liked you both because, you know, I'm your sister in Greekdom. I'm a member of Delta Sigma Theta. So you're Omega Men. That's all right. That's all right.
All right.
I want to thank you both. You have been amazing. You've been impactful and you've been informative. And I believe that you deserve every success that you have because you're humble. You stay true to yourselves and you were just quite honest and authentic about your trek. And I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. I didn't have to ask you 100 times. You certainly are giving back to the community. I think that's so important. And I just want to continue to wish you every success in the world. And the next time I'm actually going to do some research now on hydrogen fuel, because that's actually fascinating to me.
Yes.
So I'm definitely going to have to do that because I'm a researcher by heart and I'm going to have to figure out what that's about.
Well, thank you so much for having us. It's been a delight and all the best with everything that you guys are doing with this platform. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Michelle.